bring our country down. That's what's going on with the teachers union. So if you're in the teachers unions, get out and run as fast as you can in the other direction. That's my piece of advice. We'll be back in a few.
Some Christians wonder if boycotting businesses is really biblical, and that's a fair question. Ed Vitagliano and M.D. Perkins address that subject in depth in the AFA Cultural Institute video, Stewardship in Action, The Power of the Boycott. They share the purpose of boycotts and show how they can impact the culture. We're giving that DVD to you free as our thanks for supporting AFA this month. Go to afa.net today for more details. afa.net. As we watch world events unfold and fulfill Scripture, it's hard to believe anyone could doubt God and His Word are real. And yet there are so many who either question or completely refuse to believe it. The God Who Speaks is a 90-minute documentary that hits the doubt head-on with evidence that proves God is real and His Word is the ultimate authority. Watch it anytime and invite others to watch with you. Just visit stream.afa.net. That's stream.afa.net.
This is Walker Wildman with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's Michael with Bible League International.
Walker, the Zalika refugee camp in Malawi, Africa. It's a place of total chaos. There's 60,000 women, men, and children packed into a camp designed only for 10,000. There's poor sanitation, violence among people groups that hate each other, even murders. But enter the hope of the gospel, where 50 Bible studies have led to 1,000 people coming to Christ in recent months, and there's a sense of calmness and order coming to parts of that camp. One of these new believers, Miriam, is a widow praying for a Bible to lead her children to know and love Jesus. And that's why AFR and Bible League want to fill the empty waiting hands of 4,000 Bibleless believers around the world this fall. And today, every gift will be doubled. Walker?
$5 sends one Bible. Yes, that's $5 for one Bible. $100 sends 20, and $500 sends 100 Bibles. Give generously at 800-YES-WORD, 800-YES-WORD, or visit sendbiblesnow.org. Sendbiblesnow.org.
You've heard of intermittent fasting. It's trending everywhere these days, but biblical fasting isn't about weight loss, it's about holiness. At sunset tonight, observant Jews will break their 25-hour Yom Kippur fast with joyous feasting. But here's the remarkable truth most people miss. This ancient rhythm carries stunning prophetic significance. Yom Kippur points to a future day of celebration at the marriage supper of the Lamb. Just as this Jewish holiday transitions from fasting to joyous feasting, Christ's second advent will inaugurate history's greatest celebration. Bible prophecy declares with absolute authority that the same Jesus who fulfilled the spring feast at his first coming will fulfill the fall feast at his return. This traditional observance points prophetically to Jesus and the promised feast when Jew and Gentile will celebrate together at his table. This is Tim Moore wishing you Godspeed.
Jesus is returning soon. To find out more, go to christinprophecy.org.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the program here on American Family Radio. I'm Walker Wildman. I'm glad to have you with us here on the show. Chris Woodward joins us as he does each Friday. Chris, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Well, Chris, as of this recording, the government is still shut down.
Yes.
And half or more of the lawmakers aren't even in Washington, D.C. They might be coming back, some of them over the weekend.
Could be.
There does seem to be, Chris, no urgency. There seems to be no urgency to reopen the government. Isn't that quite interesting?
It is. Now, some people might tell you it's because they're still getting paid. So what do they care if the government is shut down? That has been something people have pointed out this week on programs like on Fox News, on programs on AFR. Members of Congress are paid, whereas other people may not be getting a check or won't be getting a check again until the government reopens, whenever that is.
Yeah. Yeah, this, Chris, is honestly, I don't want to be a hypocrite. The White House is applying the pressure. White House and Republicans are applying the pressure, and they're highlighting what services are shut down when the government is shut down, which it's fine. They're not misleading people. I will say, and this is not towing the talking points of the White House, I don't think the shutdown is as big of a deal as some people make it. Now, if you take this thing on 30 to 60 days, yes, you start seeing lives impacted. You start seeing, government employees not getting paid, etc. But everybody gets back pay.
Right.
With every single agency, every single government employee that is, quote, furloughed, they get back pay. So everybody gets paid. Nobody's, quote, really missing a paycheck. It just might be delayed. So, but Chris, the petition or the request that the Democrats are going for here, one of them is to rescind part of the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's what they want to do. They want to rescind part of President Trump's signature piece of legislation. And also they want to ensure that Medicaid is available for illegal immigrants.
Right.
And they've been saying, no, the Republicans are lying. But I've read the text of the bill, and they want to turn back on an Obama-era eligibility a statute that ensures that illegal immigrants can qualify for Medicare, or Medicaid, rather. Medicare. And so, Medicaid. There's two different programs.
Right.
Why the marketing team decided to name them basically the same thing.
Government, they always screw
Yeah,
up.
right. But the Democrats are in a spot here, Chris.
They really are, and they're the reason we have things like Medicare and Medicaid. It's not fair for a working American who pays way too much in taxes to have to pay for things not only in this government, but for people who broke the law and are continuing to break the law to be here. That sounds cruel, that sounds heartless, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Americans, by and large, are underpaid and overtaxed. Why in the world would you do something to benefit somebody else who shouldn't be even here in the first place? It is taking up room in a line at a hospital where people go to get health care.
Yes. Yeah, it's baffling. And Chris, it's still rather shocking to me, just from a practical and political standpoint, that this is where the Democrats want to fight. It's one thing to fight to expand welfare for their voting base, or to make sure that the state and local tax deduction is restored because their donors in New York and California want their taxes to be lower. But with this, Chris, technically speaking, none of these people should be Democrat voters anyway,
Right.
Unless they're in California and they're giving them a driver's license.
Yeah.
But it's just so bizarre that the Democrats, that this is their voting bloc now that they're petitioning for.
Right. This is one of the reasons why I think Donald Trump and J.D. Vance got as many votes as they did in urban areas in the 2024 election. And I bring that up because in places like Chicago, you had African-American voters that were Democrats that were upset with city services because they were doing things that taxpayers are paying for and expecting a return on their investment, right? And the city was turning around and giving those things to people that should not be here. It's the same reason why you had people in Chicago in city council meetings giving the mayor the business in 2024. It's the same reason why Donald Trump got a huge turnout at a rally in a place not far from where AOC is representing.
Yeah.
It may have even been in the same district. He won as many votes as he did in big urban areas because of issues like this. And there was a time where Democrats would have said, hey, if you're not here, I can't help you. But for some reason, in the 2024, 2025 year in which we live, they're literally turning their back on people that are Americans, are funding the government they're representing, and they're ignoring the situations of their own constituents to benefit people that might vote for them.
Yeah. Chris, there's a race, and you didn't come on to talk about this, but there's a governor's race in New Jersey this year, and a couple other states as well. But Republicans are gaining some headway there. And New Jersey's not really a deep blue state.
No,
when
it's
you
not.
look at the numbers, they are a blue state, not a deep blue state like California. Would that be something if a Republican won the New Jersey governorship?
Yeah, it would. It's the first one in a long time. I know Chris Christie, some people would say he's not really a Republican. He was Republican compared to other governors they've had in the past. I would not be shocked if you were to see that fall into Republican hands and that person come out and say, hey, if you don't want to live under Mamdani's leadership there in New York City, come across and live in where it's cheaper, it's safer, it's more secure. Come to New Jersey. You know.
So the Republicans, just to give some numbers, and then we'll jump on to some of these other topics.
Okay.
The GOP has netted roughly 220,000 Republican registrations in New Jersey since 2021. And the last election was lost by just 84,000 votes. The last governorship election was lost, the Republican lost by 84,000 votes. That's a big deal. And so Democrats are in a bad spot. And I said this after the 2024 election. Democrats are in a bad spot, and they'll stay in a bad spot because they have the inability, they are unable to self-correct. They are a radical party, they are a godless party, and they have nobody in the party, they kick them all out, that will speak any semblance of sanity and truth into the Democrat culture.
Yeah. To your point here about how they fail to correct, this week, Rahm Emanuel, who was the mayor of Chicago and was a representative for Illinois, he worked for the Obama administration back in the day, he wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal in which he's trying to convince Democrats, like, hey, we need to have an education reset and start having a serious conversation about educational reforms that Republicans are out there pushing. And I'm not making this up. The quote from one of many quotes from Rahm Emanuel is this: Democrats must realize that if money alone could solve the problem, every American student would be a National Merit Scholar. He then goes on to say, we need to be focusing more on teaching students actual pronouns rather than what pronouns we think they should have and which bathroom to use. In 2025, a Democrat is saying this. Now, I talked to Corey DeAngelo for a reaction to this, and he said, finally, a Democrat has come around on this issue. But he went on to point out, and I think he's correct, that there's a lot of Democrat constituents out there that want things like school choice. But the problem is the teachers union, which control the Democratic Party, are telling the party leaders, hey, don't do this, it's bad, we're not going to donate to you, or I'm going to endorse your primary challenger, all these things. And because of that, you have Democrats making boneheaded decisions in the education realm and in all the other parts of government.
Yeah, when you look at the Democrat policies and the policies of the teachers unions, hardly any of them are actually serving the students. They're, if anything, serving the teachers or serving the unions or the bureaucracy, but definitely not the students, which should be the primary focus. Chris, what about this story on the Green New Deal funding that President Trump and the Republicans just keep pulling billions away from these Green New Deal slush funds?
Yes, and these are taxpayer dollars. In a story you can find on our website, afn.net, the Trump administration is canceling nearly $8 billion in grants that supported hundreds of so-called clean energy projects in 16 states, all of which voted for Democrat Kamala Harris in last year's presidential election. When you read down into the article, you'll see that 223 projects were terminated after a review determined that they did not adequately advance nation's energy needs or were not economically viable. Some people might say green new scam. That's kind of harsh. If you're trying to sell something on people and you're requiring them to pay taxes for it, they should get their money back. There should be a return on investment. We shouldn't be funding solar panels and wind turbines and all the other things out there if it's not doing what they told us it would.
Yeah.
If you were spending money on something and it didn't work out well, or it wasn't going to work out well, you have all the right to say, I'm not funding this anymore.
Yes.
So the administration is helping everybody listening to the sound of my voice by stopping this, because Democrats and Republicans and libertarians and a whole lot of other people are funding things that are not working. So why not cut it?
Yeah, if you allow the free market, Chris, to drive the energy sector, wind and solar would be nothing what it is today. But now, I'm not saying it wouldn't exist. It might exist in some fringe markets, or as some ultra expensive option for people who just have money to spend, or maybe in remote areas where power generation is expensive and difficult. But you would have nowhere near the level of use of wind and solar today had it not been subsidized by the federal government.
Right.
And I'll even say this, Elon Musk would not have sold nearly as many Teslas had it not been for those tax credits. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And so when you allow the free market to do what it does, and that tells you what consumers want and what they don't want. This whole so-called renewable, even though technically there's no energy that is truly renewable, some is longer lasting than others, but it wouldn't be nearly what it is today.
Right.
But when the government pumps over $1 trillion into something, of course, for a little while, it's going to look popular and great.
Yeah. Some of these things that they cut funding for were like charging stations in bad neighborhoods that lack things like grocery stores. A bad neighborhood doesn't need a place to charge an EV. They need a place to buy some food because they have to live and work in that area. The government can and should be doing better things with money. If we're required to pay for it, the expectation should be that you're going to do something that's actually going to benefit people in that area. And, some people I've talked to over the years have said things like, well, Iowa gets like a lot of its energy now from wind energy, and that's great. It's true. Iowa does get a lot of its energy now from wind energy, but Iowa has a population of about 3.2 million people. Okay, that doesn't mean what Iowa's doing can work for the entire country.
Right.
And we're not going to use a lot of the space to put wind turbines and stuff like that. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but you don't see a lot of green energy projects like solar panels and wind turbines where Nancy Pelosi lives.
No, because they need way more power than those can produce.
Right, and it's also an eyesore.
Yeah,
for the country.
Duly noted. Very much an eyesore. Yeah, and when you look at even the ones in like Iowa, when you look at the money that it costs to build them, I mean, the return on investment is like decades out. And the same thing with solar. I mean, you talk to engineers today that understand electricity, understand energy, they laugh at solar. They're like, do you know how many panels you will need to get the power that you want? It's just crazy. And you look at these aerial shots of China and how they're just filling the mountainsides with solar panels. It's just a stain on our earth, and it disrupts God's created order, and it's very, very inefficient. And then not to mention, a lot of the raw materials and the panels themselves are sourced out of China.
Yeah.
So we're making ourselves more and more reliant on the Chinese supply chain. Chris, what's the last story that you guys have covered? One last story you guys have covered this week.
Well, I do want to bring people's attention to something that involves abortion, because we cover a lot of pro-life news, being a Christian ministry and a news service inside AFA here. And I want to bring this to people's attention because this week, even as the government was about to shut down, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, quietly approved a new generic version of the abortion drug mifepristone. The drug is produced by something called Avita Solutions LLC, a company that describes its mission as being to normalize abortion and make it accessible to all. I talked to Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, or SBA Pro-Life America, about this. They're concerned. They want people to reach out to various officials and tell them not to do these kinds of things. The concern being that the abortion drug is very harmful to women, certainly babies as well, but women. And there's a lot of people out there that will tell you that the abortion drug is safe, it's harmless, it's as harmless as Tylenol, they'll tell you. But SBA has said that no, actually, when you take this, it can cause massive problems. And
Yes.
to their point, there was a big study out this year that found nearly like 11% of women that take abortion drugs have serious adverse health reactions because of it.
Absolutely, yeah. The abortion drug mifepristone is dangerous, and there's studies that bear that out, and real life testimonies as well. And it's obviously dangerous solely on the fact that it takes the life of the child. That in and of itself is the definition of dangerous. And then furthermore, it can harm the mother as well. So 2 injuries and even deaths can take place from the use of mifepristone. Terrible decision by the FDA. They must rescind that quickly, very quickly. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, folks, see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas. As a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign. By designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037, you help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. The White House will look to cut aid and send federal agents to Portland in response to violent Antifa riots. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
We will not fund states that allow anarchy. There will also be an additional surge of federal resources to Portland immediately, including enhanced CBP and ICE resources.
During the 2024 campaign, President Trump said that he would make America safe again. The FBI, under the leadership of Kash Patel, has cut ties with both the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League over lists they published that has incited violence against conservatives and conservative organizations. Here's AFN's Steve Jordahl.
The ADL had a database it published that listed groups and even specific individuals it believed were or belonged to hate groups. For the SPLC, it was a map showing locations of these groups. These databases have been implicated in several violent attacks against conservatives, including an attempted massacre at the Family Research Council in 2012, and more recently, the assassination of Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk. AFR podcast host Sandra Rios says she was on the list at one point.
They had a list for women, which I was on, with Judge Janine and Laura Ingraham and about 10 of us. We were Women Against Islam, and they used our photos. They put our geographical location.
She says the lists go back several years.
Really horrible contact and use of data from the ADL and from the Southern Poverty Law Center began during the Obama years. FBI
Director Kash Patel says the FBI has no intelligence products and does not share information with either the SPLC or the ADL. AFA Vice President Ed Vitagliano says American Family Association was on the SPLC hate map.
The SPLC, for example, has been doing this for years in misrepresenting the views of Christian groups like American Family Association.
He says the move by the FBI is part of a larger effort by the Trump administration to target the so-called deep state. I'm Steve Jordahl.
President Trump said that Hamas must agree to a proposed peace deal for Gaza by Sunday evening. This is the same peace deal that Trump announced earlier this week during White House talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump also wants Israel to end its offensive in Gaza, and he says Hamas must also agree to terms and release hostages taken since the October 2023 terrorist attack in Israel. The U.S. Supreme Court will consider overturning a Hawaii law that imposes strict regulations on where people can carry guns. Here's Alan Gottlieb of Second Amendment Foundation.
I'm really glad the United States Supreme Court decided to take this case. It's a very important one. What Hawaii has gone and done is passed what we call a vampire type of law. It says that you cannot carry a firearm on private property. Now, obviously, private property owners have a right to deny you from carrying a firearm on their property. But the way it works is that they have to post a sign saying no guns or tell you that you cannot carry a firearm. The vampire rule in Hawaii says flat out that unless the owner of the property posts a sign saying that you can carry or tells you can carry, you flat out can't. And the state of Hawaii does not have the legal authority to say that, you automatically blanket cannot carry on private property. So I'm really glad the U.S. Supreme Court is taking this case. And I'm really convinced that the only reason they're taking it is to overturn it.
Read more about this on our website, afn.net. In final news, OpenAI has launched a new social media app called Sora, aiming to capture the audience of short-term video platforms like TikTok and Instagram. The app allows users to create AI videos in various styles, from anime to realistic. Some worry these AI-generated videos could crowd out genuine human creativity and degrade the internet with a flood of what's known as AI slop. OpenAI says it is building in safeguards to deter doom scrolling and addiction. Find more news on afn.net. Thanks for listening.
Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training or cultural transformation. AFA believes that all men and women, whether in private or public, should be free to exercise their faith without hindrance from the government.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association. Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, prescribing hope for healthy families here on American Family Radio. Here's your host, Professor, Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, and Mom of 4, Dr. Jessica Peck.
Happy Friday. Yay! It is Friday. It is Friday. It is Friday. And it's a Friday in October, which is exciting to me because that is closer to the holidays. Yeah, that's all that'll go this time. But you know my affinity for the holiday season. I love that. And I hope that whatever you're doing this weekend, whether you're working, you're traveling, you're spending time with family, if you're having a long-awaited rest, if you're going to be one of those people under the Friday night lights cheering on someone you love, or whatever you're doing, I hope, for one thing, you're planning to go to church on Sunday. Going to church is so important and something that we talked about way back in week 3 of 2025. We talked about that in the third week of January in 52 Habits for Healthy Kids. Going to church is so important. We'll be talking about that more as time goes on and how to find a good church. We've talked about it before. We will talk about it again, but it's so important to get your family connected into church as we are navigating this world. And if you followed along since January, every Friday, yay, as my kids say, we talk about a new healthy habit and I answer questions. We've talked about spiritual disciplines. We've talked about family rhythms. We've talked about communication skills. We have talked about tech. We spent all summer talking about tech. And then we talked about safety. And right now we're in our own little Beatitudes. And we've talked about different attitudes to have. We have talked about being hopeful. We've talked about being a good friend. Last week we talked about being unafraid. And if you caught the show yesterday and heard Voices of the Martyrs, such an incredible message from Todd Middleton about persecuted Christians around the world that really deeply inspired and convicted me to be more unafraid and to be more bold in sharing our faith. And in a world that's saturated with fear, we need to have that faith-informed confidence that this world is not all that there is. We have our hearts set on eternity, and that is our goal for our families. So this week I'm talking about being an influencer. Yes, we're going to talk about influencer culture. I'll answer some questions about that and really how you can turn influencer culture on its head. Take advantage of it and be an influencer in your own family. Now, it doesn't matter if you have toddlers or if you have teens or if you have grown children or if it's you and your spouse or you and your extended family. Whatever family God has given you, you can be an influencer in that family. And in a world where YouTubers and TikTok stars and online personalities shape everything, they are shaping our world so much more than we think. And if you dive down that rabbit hole, I promise you it's a little disturbing. So proceed with caution, because online personalities shape what sneakers your kids are wearing or how we think about ourselves. And yet we forget that we are the most important influencer in our family's life. And I'm talking especially to parents today who are deeply concerned about the dangerous influences that could harm their children, whether it's their peers at school or questionable media, the culture at large. We are very protective about that. We embrace models of gatekeeping parenting. We want to keep all of those threats away from our kids, which is a good thing. Ironically, while guarding against these external threats, many parents are unintentionally, and without even knowing it, giving influencers the most intimate access to their child's heart and mind through their phones, in their bedrooms, and even in their head, literally in their headphones, in the very spaces where children feel the safest. I want to make sure you catch this. they are often left alone with these voices in their head that shape their beliefs, shape their behaviors, and shape their identities. And what concerns me is that sense of vicarious safety, because I'm in my room, because I'm curled up on the couch, because I'm in a home where my family loves me. This translates that credibility to the influencers because it inherently feels more safe than meeting a stranger on the street, and it allows their messages to slip past the radar of parental concern. Now, this is a paradox that we need to wake up to because it reveals a subtle but powerful gap. Parents might be on high alert for obvious dangers while overlooking those quiet but constant influential dangers that are coming right through your digital devices into your kids' most private, most sacred, most safe spaces in the world. So today we are going to explore how you can cultivate the healthy habit of being the influencer that God designed you to be in your family. And I have help and hope for that because there is a lot of hope in how God designed the family. So to do that, of course, we've got to look back to understand today, where we are today. And let's talk about influencer culture and where did this even come from? Because we really didn't even use the word influencer until recently. And before that term existed, brands still did lean heavily on celebrities. They used athletes, they used movie stars to sell stuff. I mean, don't believe me, just think about Michael Jordan's partnership with Nike in the 1980s. Air Jordan. Everybody wanted a pair of Air Jordans. Those were a social contagion that were unstoppable. And that is often cited as one of the first mega examples of influencer marketing. And then we saw TV commercials, magazines start to shape what you bought. How many of you got the Sears Wish Christmas catalog? I mean, that was like the day. I would get a Sharpie and you would circle what you wanted. I mean, we saw those kinds of things. But again, this was a very static paper catalog. And that power was centralized among big corporations. They decided what would sell, to whom it would sell, and how it would sell. Now enter social media. In around 2005, we have YouTube pioneers. YouTube launched in 2005, which is crazy to me to think about because we have a whole generation of kids now who are being born not knowing anything but YouTube, but it doesn't seem that long ago. But the thing with YouTube is that now regular people, just anybody, any person could suddenly share content and build loyal audiences. So we had early creators like makeup tutorials. Anybody remember? Anybody have kids who are millennials, Gen Z? Anybody remember Bethany Moda? She was one of the first influencers selling clothing, selling cosmetics, and she was really instrumental in showing companies that everyday voices could move markets. You didn't have to be Michael Jordan. You didn't have to be a Hollywood celebrity. You could just be someone who had a following on YouTube. Now, around the same time, these platforms made it possible for personalities to cultivate community. Now, the Sears catalog did not think, oh, let's create community here where everyone can talk about what's in the catalog. They just said, no, here's the catalog. We want you to buy. But now we have these communities which are great and also dangerous because now we have micro celebrities with little niche followings. Then we started to see Instagram and the influencer boom. Remember the .com boom? We had the Instagram boom in the 2010s. This was launched in 2010. Instagram really just poured gasoline on the fire that was influencer culture. It was built for visuals. It showed you fashion. It showed you food. It showed you lifestyles. It showed you travel. And now these experiences, these products were curated and you could buy them instantly. And then we have the micro influencers. See, these aren't Hollywood celebrities like major celebrities that have tens or hundreds of millions of followers on social media. These influencers are relatable, accessible, interactive, and people trust them more. Your kids trust them more because it feels like they're friends. Most people know they're not friends with a major celebrity like Justin Bieber, but they don't think it's impossible to be friends with a micro influencer. And we see this shift in advertising. Brands discovered, hey, influencers have marketing potential here. They have higher engagement than we do. They have better conversion than we do on our traditional ads. And that sparked partnerships between companies and influencers. Now, this is important because we're coming to TikTok and Gen Z and Gen Alpha. This is the 2020s, the short form explosion. This is where TikTok transformed that influencer culture to be bite-sized viral content. That was everything. Is it really short, and is it going to go viral? Influencers became younger, and they were often anonymous. Nobody knew about them until they went viral, and that was the whole goal. Enter the power of the algorithm, because unlike Instagram, where you mostly saw people you followed, TikTok's algorithm promoted strangers' content. It's the For You page. This allowed anyone to become an influencer overnight, and it gave influencers outsized power, because that viral trend could shape a trend, could shape music, could shape consumer behavior, and even political movements. And we know that Gen Z trusts influencers more than celebrities or brands or sometimes even traditional news outlets. If you don't believe that, look at the names that are associated with being followers of certain celebrities. They view themselves as part of their family, part of their supporters. They are in part of a culture, looking at squads or whatever else. I won't elevate any other celebrities, but just look at the rise of that. And I'll just say one more, because this just happened last night with Taylor Swift. I know, I did. I said it. I went there. But she is a perfect example of this, dropping an album. And you have people feeling like they're in that family, waiting for that album to drop and making it a social experience. That's